Life doesn't ask for your permission before it tests you, does it? One moment everything feels calm and the next, the people you trust hurt you, plans collapse, and peace disappears without warning. You start wondering, why can't I stay calm? Why does every problem shake me so easily? The truth is, most of us spend our lives trying to control the waves instead of learning how to float. But what if I told you that you could reach a state where no storm, no insult, and no loss could disturb your soul, where your peace remains untouched no matter how chaotic life becomes? Buddhism calls this the unshakable state, the art of staying still inside while the world spins outside. In this video, we'll explore 12 Buddhist principles that teach you exactly how to do that, how to walk through life calm, clear, and completely unaffected by its chaos. Because once you master your inner world, nothing in the outer world can ever break you again. 1. The power of equanimity. Equanimity means finding a calm center within yourself that cannot be shaken, no matter what is happening around you. It is the state of inner peace that comes when you stop chasing what feels good and stop running from what feels bad. Most people live like waves, rising when things go right, crashing when things go wrong. Their peace depends on circumstances, people, and success. But when you develop equanimity, you become like the deep ocean. No matter how wild the surface waves become, the depth remains still. This stillness is not cold indifference. It is awareness with understanding. It is knowing that both pleasure and pain are teachers, that both joy and sorrow are temporary visitors in the home of your mind. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is attachment to comfort, to control, to outcomes. When you release that attachment, you stop fighting the natural rhythm of life. You begin to see that everything, whether pleasant or painful, is part of the same divine balance that keeps the universe in harmony. When life gives you success, you enjoy it without pride. When it gives you loss, you accept it without despair. You stop labeling things as good or bad and start observing them as experiences meant for your growth. This perspective transforms you from a reactor into a responder. You learn that your peace doesn't depend on what happens, but on how you meet what happens. Think of your mind as the sky and your emotions as clouds. Some days bring clear blue skies, some bring storms, but the sky itself is never damaged. When you live with equanimity, you become that sky, vast, unchanging, and untouched by passing storms. You realize that happiness is not in controlling the weather of life, but in understanding that the storms will always come and go. What remains your awareness, your stillness, your peace, is who you truly are. This is the heart of equanimity, being able to stay calm in victory and graceful in defeat, compassionate in anger and patient in pain. When you live with this understanding, no insult, no failure, no loss can disturb your inner balance. You rise above reaction and meet life with wisdom. This is not escape, it is mastery. It is the unshakable peace that no storm can destroy. 2. Let go of why me. The question, why me, is one of the biggest sources of human suffering. It comes from the mind's belief that life should always go according to plan, that pain is unfair, and that others somehow have it easier. But this question locks you inside the prison of self-pity. It keeps you focused on what's wrong instead of what's possible. The truth is, life never promised us comfort. It promised us growth. And growth often comes disguised as discomfort, challenge, or loss. When you stop asking, why me, and begin asking, what is this trying to teach me? Your entire experience changes. Suddenly, pain becomes a teacher, not a punishment. You start seeing that every difficulty is shaping your character, stretching your understanding, and preparing you for something greater. What you call suffering, life calls transformation. The Buddha often said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, because suffering begins where resistance begins. Every challenge carries a message. Sometimes it teaches patience, sometimes humility, sometimes faith. The problem is not in the event itself, but in your interpretation of it. When the mind keeps fighting reality, it creates endless suffering. But when you surrender to the lesson hidden within pain, peace quietly enters. This surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is recognizing that even what breaks you is guiding you toward awakening. Think of a seed buried under the soil. It might feel like darkness, pressure, and isolation, but that pressure is what allows it to grow roots and reach the light. Life does the same to you. The moments when you feel buried are often the moments when your soul is learning to rise. Letting go of "why me?" means trusting that there is purpose even in chaos. It means believing that what is happening for you is far more important than what is happening to you. Once you stop fighting reality and begin to cooperate with it, you'll notice that pain loses its power to destroy and becomes a force that strengthens. Remember, the wisest souls are not those who avoid hardship, but those who look at it and say, "Teach me." When you adopt this mindset, life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a classroom. Every challenge, every delay, every heartbreak becomes a part of your evolution. And when you finally understand this, you stop being a victim of life and become a student of it, calm, aware, and undefeated within. San, live like a river. A river never argues with the rocks in its path. It doesn't complain about obstacles or try to change the direction of the mountains. It simply flows around, over, or through whatever stands before it. That is its strength. To live like a river means to stop resisting the natural flow of life, and to trust that every twist, every turn, every fall has a purpose. Most people suffer because they try to control the flow. They want life to move according to their expectations. But the more you resist, the more exhausted you become. The secret to peace is not control, it is surrender. When you observe a river closely, you'll notice that it is never still, yet it is never lost. It moves gracefully through uncertainty. It doesn't cling to one spot or mourn the bends it leaves behind. In the same way, we must learn to let go of moments, people, and phases that have completed their purpose in our journey. Life is a series of flows. Jobs change, relationships shift, bodies age, seasons turn. The more you hold on, the more you suffer. The moment you release your grip and start moving with life instead of against it, you will feel an enormous lightness in your heart. The Buddha often taught that resistance is the root of pain. When you fight reality, you are like a river trying to flow uphill. You waste your energy wishing for a different past or fearing a different future. But when you move with the current, you begin to discover your natural rhythm, a deeper harmony between yourself and existence. Flow doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting the timing of life. It means understanding that everything has its pace, and rushing only leads to struggle. There will be moments when you face obstacles so great that your flow feels blocked. In those times, remember the wisdom of the river. When a rock stands in its way, it doesn't stop. It simply finds another route. It may take longer, but it always reaches the ocean. Your life is the same sometimes. What looks like a detour is actually the perfect path to where you are meant to be. Living like a river also means embracing change. The same water that passes once never passes again, yet the river remains the same. You, too, can remain peaceful, even as everything about you evolves: your thoughts, your emotions, your circumstances. When you stop identifying yourself with the temporary and start identifying with the eternal flow of life within you, nothing can disturb your inner peace. So, let yourself flow not with fear, but with faith. Flow through joy and sorrow, through clarity and confusion. Let life carry you instead of forcing your way through it. When you trust the current of existence, you realize that you are not being swept away. You are being guided. And in that trust, every wave becomes a teacher, and every obstacle becomes part of your awakening. To live like a river is to live freely, adaptable, patient, and always moving toward the ocean of truth. 4. Master the art of inner observation. Most people live their entire lives reacting to what happens around them, shouting when they are angry, crying when they are hurt, and worrying when things go wrong. But the Buddha taught that freedom begins not by changing the world, but by observing the mind. Observation is the art of stepping back and watching your thoughts and emotions without becoming them. It means learning to see what arises inside you: anger, fear, jealousy, desire, and understanding that none of it defines who you are. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices them. Imagine sitting beside a calm lake, watching ripples form on its surface. Those ripples are like your emotions, temporary movements within a deeper stillness. When you identify with the ripples, you become restless. But when you sit back and simply watch, you realize that the lake is vast, silent, and untouched beneath. The same applies to your consciousness. Beneath all your thoughts and emotions lies a still awareness that is never disturbed. That awareness is your true self, pure, peaceful, and infinite. The practice of inner observation begins with silence. You don't have to meditate for hours, simply pause before reacting. When anger arises, don't feed it with words, just notice it. Feel it moving in your chest, your face, your breath. Watch it like a scientist observing a chemical reaction. You'll see that it comes, burns for a while, and fades away. When sadness arises, don't drown in it. Observe how it colors your thoughts and how your mind tries to create stories around it. When you step back and watch, emotions lose their control over you. They become experiences, not prisons. This is the art of mindfulness, being aware without judgment. When you judge your emotions, you create resistance. When you resist, you suffer. But when you observe with kindness, even pain becomes sacred. You start to see patterns, how certain situations trigger you, how ego reacts, how fear hides behind anger. Each observation reveals a truth about yourself, and that truth becomes the light that guides your awakening. The Buddha compared the untrained mind to a wild monkey, jumping from one thought to another without rest. Inner observation is how you tame this monkey. You don't fight it or force it to sit still. You watch it patiently until it realizes there is no need to jump. With time, the mind becomes quiet on its own. In that quietness, you discover something profound. You were never the chaos. You were always the witness. When you learn to watch your inner world without attachment, your outer world begins to lose its power to disturb you. Someone's words, a failed plan, and/or unexpected loss no longer shake your peace because you've realized that the real battlefield is within. You cannot control others, but you can always control your awareness, and awareness transforms everything it touches. Practice this every day while walking, eating, or talking. Notice your thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky. You don't have to push them away, just don't chase them. When you catch yourself lost in worry, bring your attention back to the present moment, to your breath, to the ground beneath your feet. Slowly, you'll begin to experience a gap between you and your emotions, a sacred space of freedom. In that space, you are untouchable. This is what it means to master the art of inner observation, to live in the world without being ruled by it, to feel deeply but not drown, to face storms yet remain still inside. It is not about suppressing emotions. It is about understanding them so clearly that they no longer control you. When you reach this state, peace becomes your natural condition, not something you search for, but something you simply are. And in that awareness, you realize that nothing outside you has ever truly disturbed you. It was only your unobserved mind reacting blindly. Once you see this truth, you awaken. You become the silent witness to all of life, calm, clear, and completely free. 5. Accept impermanence. Deeply, impermanence is one of the most profound truths of existence, yet it is also the one most people resist. Everything changes, everyone leaves, every joy fades, every pain passes. Every heartbeat, every breath, every sunrise is a reminder that nothing stays the same for long. Yet we spend our lives trying to hold on to what is slipping through our fingers. We cling to relationships, success, youth, health, comfort, as if they could last forever. And when life inevitably changes, we call it suffering. But the Buddha taught that the root of suffering lies not in change itself, but in our refusal to accept it. To understand impermanence is to understand peace. When you look deeply, you see that change is not the enemy, it is the nature of life itself. Nothing in this universe is fixed. Mountains crumble, rivers shift, stars burn out, and galaxies are born again. The body you have today is not the same body you had 10 years ago. Even your thoughts and emotions change moment to moment. The only constant is change. When you see this clearly, you stop clinging to the illusion of permanence. You stop fighting time and begin to flow with it. The problem is that the human mind wants control. It wants to freeze the moments that bring pleasure and fast forward through those that bring pain. But when you cling to the beautiful moments, they slip away faster. When you resist the painful ones, they stay longer. When you accept impermanence, not just intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually, you start living differently. You love people more deeply because you know they won't be here forever. You appreciate ordinary moments, a smile, a sunset, a breath, because you understand their fragile beauty. Think of a flower. It blooms, radiates its fragrance, and withers away. If you love the flower, you don't cry when it fades. You are grateful that it existed at all. That is the essence of true love and peace, to enjoy what life gives you without trying to own it. When you stop clinging, you begin to experience freedom. You realize that loss is not always tragedy. Sometimes it is transformation. The falling leaf is not dying, it is returning to the soil so that new life can grow. In the same way, every ending in your life is secretly the beginning of something else. The Buddha often said that all conditioned things are impermanent. What this means is that anything born from causes and conditions, relationships, emotions, possessions, even your identity, will eventually dissolve. When you resist this truth, you live in constant fear, fear of aging, fear of losing money, fear of rejection, fear of death. But when you accept impermanence deeply, fear dissolves. You stop trying to hold on to what cannot be held, and that releases an enormous burden from your heart. You stop worrying about what will end and begin to fully experience what is. Impermanence also teaches humility. It reminds you that no victory or failure defines you. You may be praised today and forgotten tomorrow. You may be healthy this year and fragile the next. Understanding this makes you kind, compassionate, and patient. You stop judging others because you see that everyone is riding the same wave of change, rising, falling, learning. You stop chasing status because you realize it is dust in the wind. Instead, you begin to value inner stability, the peace that does not depend on outer circumstances. There is a deep beauty in impermanence once you stop fearing it. It shows you that nothing truly belongs to you, and yet everything is given for a while to be cherished. The moment you let go of the need to keep things forever, gratitude takes root in your heart. You stop seeing change as loss and start seeing it as motion, the movement that keeps life alive. The Japanese Zen masters call this awareness wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and transience. They find beauty in the faded leaf, the cracked bowl, the wrinkle on an aging face, because those signs of time are not flaws, they are proof of life's dance. When you live with this understanding, your soul becomes gentle. You stop demanding perfection from life and start finding peace in its natural rhythm. So, next time life changes, when someone leaves, when plans fail, when you look in the mirror and see time in your eyes, don't mourn the change. Honor it. Whisper to yourself, "This too shall pass." Because that phrase is not about sadness, it is about truth. Everything passes, and that is what makes everything sacred. When you deeply accept impermanence, you no longer chase after what is fleeting or grieve what is gone. You become like the mountain that watches the seasons come and go, steady, aware, at peace. And from that stillness, you realize something profound. Though everything around you changes, the awareness that observes the change, your true self, remains untouched, eternal, and free. That is the moment your soul becomes unshakable. Shesh. Respond. Don't react. The difference between peace and chaos often lies in one small moment, the space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Most people live trapped in reactivity. Someone insults them, and they immediately lash back. A challenge appears, and they panic. A plan fails, and they drown in frustration. This automatic reaction is the root of suffering because it hands your peace over to everything outside you. The Buddha taught that freedom begins in that small pause, the sacred gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies wisdom, patience, and control over your inner state. To respond means to act with awareness. To react means to act with impulse. When you react, you are a puppet of your emotions. When you respond, you are a master of them. The goal of spiritual growth is not to suppress your feelings, but to understand them so deeply that they no longer control you. When you learn to respond instead of react, your entire life transforms. Arguments dissolve, mistakes shrink, and clarity replaces chaos. Imagine you are sitting by a still pond. Someone throws a stone into it. If the water is calm, you can see the ripples clearly. But if the water is already disturbed, the stone creates a storm. Your mind is that pond. When it is full of noise, anger, fear, insecurity, even the smallest event can stir up massive turmoil. But when your mind is still, nothing outside can disturb your clarity. Learning to respond is about keeping the pond still to see every stone as it is, not as your emotions make it appear. Reacting is easy. It requires no awareness, only habit. But responding requires mindfulness. It asks you to breathe before you speak, to observe before you decide, to reflect before you act. It is an inner discipline, a kind of emotional martial art. When anger rises, instead of letting it explode, you pause and ask, "What is this emotion trying to show me?" When fear knocks, instead of running, you observe its voice. You begin to see that most reactions are not about the present moment, but about old wounds, unresolved emotions from the past that echo through new situations. The Buddha described this as mindful restraint, not suppression, but conscious redirection. When you feel triggered, your first instinct might be to shout, argue, or escape. But in that very moment, you have a choice. You can follow your emotion blindly, or you can breathe and choose awareness. One conscious breath can change the direction of an entire situation. That breath creates space, and in that space, wisdom arises. The one who pauses becomes powerful because they act, not out of emotion, but out of understanding. Responding instead of reacting is also an act of compassion. When someone hurts you, reacting with anger continues the cycle of pain. But when you respond with calmness, you break that chain. You show others what strength truly looks like, the strength of restraint, not revenge. People may expect you to shout, to argue, to defend, but when you respond with silence or patience, you disarm negativity. The energy they send you dies within your calmness. This is how peaceful souls protect themselves, not by fighting back, but by refusing to be pulled into the storm. There will be moments when life pushes every button you have, when everything in you wants to react. In those moments, remember, you are not your emotion. You are the awareness that sees it. Take a step back and watch yourself. Watch your breath quicken, your muscles tighten, your thoughts race. That simple observation breaks the chain of reaction. You move from being in the storm to standing outside it, watching it pass. That is real power, not the power to control others, but the power to control yourself. Every time you respond mindfully instead of reacting impulsively, you grow spiritually. You train your mind like a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your calmness becomes. Soon, you'll notice that things that once made you furious barely touch you anymore. The world hasn't changed, you have. You've built an inner shield of awareness that protects your peace. Even in moments of injustice or challenge, responding doesn't mean you stay silent or weak. It means you act from clarity, not chaos. You speak firmly but without hatred. You make decisions grounded in truth, not emotion. This balance is what makes your presence powerful, calm yet commanding, compassionate yet courageous. The Buddha said, "A man is not called wise because he talks and talks again, but if he is peaceful, loving and fearless, then he is truly called wise." Wisdom is found not in endless words, but in the quiet control of one's inner reactions. The world will always test you through people, circumstances, and unexpected storms. But every time you choose to respond rather than react, you prove that your peace belongs to you alone. So, the next time life challenges you, pause, breathe, observe before you act. In that stillness lies your true strength. Because when you master the art of response, nothing can pull you out of balance again. You become the eye of the storm, calm, steady, and untouched, while everything else continues to move around you. And that, my friend, is the essence of unshakable peace. 7. Detach from outcome. Detachment is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. It means doing your best in every moment without being enslaved by what happens afterward. Most people spend their lives trapped in the web of expectations, expecting success, appreciation, loyalty, comfort, or perfection. When reality fails to meet those expectations, they fall apart. But the Buddha taught that true peace begins when you stop tying your happiness to results. You cannot control every outcome, but you can always control the quality of your effort, the purity of your intention, and the calmness of your mind. To detach from outcomes doesn't mean to stop caring. It means to care deeply while remaining free. It means to plant the seed with love and then let nature decide how it will grow. It means to act with full dedication but not allow success or failure to define your worth. The one who is detached does everything wholeheartedly, but when the result arrives, whether pleasant or painful, they smile the same. Why? Because they understand that peace lies not in the reward, but in the action done with mindfulness. Attachment to results is one of the main sources of suffering. You work hard for something and expect a certain outcome. If it happens, you feel joy. If it doesn't, you feel pain. But this cycle is endless because life rarely unfolds exactly as the mind imagines. You might give your all and still fail. You might be kind and still be misunderstood. You might love deeply and still be left alone. The moment your peace depends on outcomes, your happiness becomes fragile, a toy in the hands of circumstances. But when you detach, you take your power back. You begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Detachment is not coldness or indifference. It is warmth without possession, involvement without dependency. It is loving someone without trying to own their choices. It is giving your best to a goal without fearing the outcome. It is walking your path with purpose while knowing that even if things don't go as planned, life is still guiding you exactly where you need to be. This awareness gives rise to a new kind of freedom, one where you can experience joy without fear and pain without collapse. Imagine holding water in your palm. If you clench your fist, the water slips away. But if you keep your hand open, the water rests gently. Life is the same. The tighter you hold, the more you lose. When you stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing them to unfold naturally, you begin to flow with life instead of fighting it. You discover that sometimes not getting what you want is protection, not punishment. Sometimes the delay is not denial, but divine timing. The detached soul trusts that whatever comes is meant for growth, and whatever leaves is meant for release. The Buddha used the example of an archer. The archer focuses completely on aiming, breathing, and releasing the arrow. But once the arrow leaves the bow, he no longer controls its path. Whether it hits or misses is not his burden. His peace comes from knowing he did his part with full awareness. In the same way, detachment teaches you to master your effort, not the outcome. When you live this way, anxiety disappears because you stop trying to predict or manipulate the future. You learn to rest in the present, doing what must be done now with sincerity and calmness. Attachment creates tension. Detachment creates flow. When you are attached, you constantly check if things are working out. You overthink, overanalyze, and compare. You suffer from the disease of what if. But when you detach, your mind quiets. You still plan, you still act, but you don't torture yourself with worry. You realize that control is an illusion. All you truly own are your thoughts, your actions, and your attitude. Everything else belongs to time. Practicing detachment also means embracing uncertainty. Life will not always make sense. People will change. Plans will fail. But when you trust that the universe moves with intelligence, that even your setbacks are sacred, you start seeing beauty in the unknown. Every door that closes, every delay that tests your patience, every twist that confuses you, they all serve a hidden purpose that you may only understand later. Detachment gives you the strength to keep walking, even when the path ahead is unclear. In relationships, detachment allows love to breathe. It teaches you that you cannot hold people captive to your expectations. You can love them, support them, wish them well, but you cannot control their choices. When you cling, you suffocate love. When you let go, you allow it to be real. Love mixed with attachment brings fear, fear of loss, rejection, or change. But pure love, rooted in detachment, brings peace because it comes without chains. In the journey of goals, detachment gives you clarity. When you are too attached to success, you work from anxiety. But when you are detached, you work from inspiration. You no longer chase validation, you act from alignment. You don't live to prove, you live to express. You stop asking, will this work? And start asking, am I doing this from truth? And when your actions come from truth, even so-called failures become victories because they refine your soul. The essence of detachment is trust. Trust in your effort, trust in time, and trust in the wisdom of life. It's understanding that sometimes the seed you plant today won't bloom until much later, maybe in a way you can't yet see. Detachment allows you to live fully without being trapped by what you cannot control. You enjoy every moment because you are no longer chasing permanence. You understand that everything, success, love, failure, fame, is just passing weather, while your inner awareness is the eternal sky. So, when you feel anxious about the future or frustrated with results, pause and remind yourself, I can control only my effort, not the outcome. Do your best, then release. This doesn't mean giving up, it means giving space. It means trusting that the universe works through you, not just for you. When you live detached, no victory intoxicates you, and no loss destroys you. You remain calm, steady, and alive in the middle of both triumph and failure. This is the highest form of balance, to act with full heart and no attachment. When you reach that state, nothing in the world can disturb your soul, because your peace no longer depends on what happens. It flows from who you have become, centered, free, and unbreakably calm. 8. Be fully present. The present moment is the only place where life truly exists, yet it is the place where most people never live. We spend our days trapped in the noise of the mind, replaying the past, worrying about the future, scrolling through endless distractions, and missing the miracle unfolding right now. The Buddha taught that to be fully present is to awaken from the dream of constant thinking and finally return home to yourself. The present is not just a point in time. It is a state of being, a sacred space where peace, clarity, and truth can be felt directly. When you are truly here, nothing can disturb your soul, because the mind that wanders is the only source of disturbance. The tragedy of modern life is that we are surrounded by beauty but rarely notice it. The sky changes color, the wind whispers through the trees, a child laughs in the distance, and yet we are too busy thinking about what's next to see it. Our bodies are here, but our minds are elsewhere, lost in what was or what might be. This split is the root of anxiety. When your mind lives in the past, you carry regret and guilt. When it runs into the future, you carry worry and fear. But when you rest in the present, both vanish. The weight of what has been and the burden of what may come dissolve in the light of now. Being present doesn't mean you reject memories or stop planning. It means you no longer get lost in them. You use the past for wisdom, not for suffering. You plan for the future, but you don't abandon the moment in front of you. Presence is balance between remembering and anticipating, between movement and stillness. It is realizing that this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this second is the only reality you truly own. The rest is thought, imagination, or memory. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." Those words are simple but revolutionary. When you start living them, you see that life itself slows down. Your senses awaken. Food tastes richer. Sounds become deeper. Conversations more meaningful. Even the most ordinary acts, drinking water, walking, breathing, turn sacred when done with awareness. Every action becomes meditation. Every step becomes prayer. But being fully present is not easy. The mind is like a restless monkey, always jumping from branch to branch. It seeks stimulation because it fears stillness. Yet it is in stillness that your true power lies. When you stop feeding the noise and simply observe your breath, you begin to sense something profound, a deep aliveness beneath all thought. That aliveness is your essence. It is not born from achievements or possessions. It is the raw energy of being. The more you connect to it, the more peaceful and resilient you become. Try this simple practice. Pause right now and take a deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel it leave. Notice the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your heart, the rise and fall of your chest, the warmth in your hands. This is presence. You are here. For a moment, your mind stops chasing and simply is. The more you return to this awareness, the more natural it becomes. You begin to notice that even during chaos, there is a quiet space inside you that remains untouched, a silence that is always present, waiting for you to return. Being present also transforms your relationships. When you truly listen to someone, not half distracted, not waiting to reply but fully listen, you give them something rare, your full attention. Presence is the purest form of love because it says, "I am with you." In a world where everyone wants to be seen and heard, your presence becomes healing. People feel safe around someone who is not lost in their own noise. The more present you are, the more deeply you connect not just with others, but with life itself. The reason we find presence difficult is that the ego resists it. The ego cannot survive in the now it lives by feeding on past stories and future fantasies. It constantly says, "Once I get this, then I'll be happy," or "I wish things had been different." The ego loves to escape the now because the now exposes its illusion. In the present moment, you realize that happiness was never missing. It was just buried beneath layers of thought. The mind says, "I need more." But the heart says, "I already have everything." Presence is how you move from the mind to the heart. Look at nature, trees, rivers, mountains, animals. None of them worry about what will happen tomorrow or regret what happened yesterday. They simply exist, responding to the rhythm of the universe. A flower doesn't rush to bloom. It opens when the sun rises. The river doesn't cling to the mountain. It flows wherever gravity leads it. This natural presence is the same state the Buddha called mindfulness, living fully in harmony with the now. When you return to this natural state, life becomes effortless. You still have goals, dreams, and plans, but they no longer consume you. You move with the rhythm of existence rather than against it. When you live in the present, gratitude blooms naturally. You begin to see how much you already have: breath, warmth, shelter, love, possibility. You stop chasing what's missing and start appreciating what's here. This simple shift from wanting to witnessing dissolves discontent. The Buddha said that craving is the root of suffering. When you are present, craving loses its grip because you are not longing for the next moment, you are content with this one. Presence also protects your peace. Most of the pain you feel comes not from what's happening now, but from the mind's commentary about it. The present moment is usually simple. It is the mind that complicates it with should, if only, and what next. If you truly observe your life, you'll see that the majority of your suffering comes from the imagination, things that haven't even happened yet. When you live fully in the now, you free yourself from this mental prison. You stop living twice, once in reality and once in the mind's stories. Of course, the mind will still wander, that's natural, but the practice is not to stop it entirely, it's to gently bring it back. Like training a wild horse, you guide your awareness again and again to the present moment, to your breath, your senses, your surroundings. Over time, this repetition rewires your mind. You begin to prefer peace over drama, presence over distraction. You find yourself less reactive, more centered. Even in chaos, you remain grounded like a mountain that stands still while clouds pass around it. Being present doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means you see it as it is, without distortion. You stop fighting reality. You accept the good and the bad with equal calmness. In that acceptance lies liberation. Every sound, every smell, every heartbeat becomes a reminder that life is happening now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. And the more deeply you live in that awareness, the more you realize that this moment is complete. It lacks nothing. Think about this truth. All of your life has only ever happened in the present. Every joy, every memory, every lesson, they were all now when they occurred. The past is just a collection of old nows. The future will be a new now. When you truly understand this, you realize that escaping the present is escaping life itself. To be absent from now is to be absent from living. So, begin to practice presence in small ways. When you wake up, feel the first breath of the day instead of reaching for your phone. When you eat, taste your food fully instead of rushing through it. When you walk, feel each step. When you talk, truly listen. These little acts are gateways to enlightenment because they bring you back home to awareness. Presence is not something to be achieved, it's something to be remembered. It is your natural state beneath all distractions. You don't have to force it. You only have to stop forgetting it. The more you remember to be here, the lighter your burdens become. You stop running, stop comparing, stop needing. You start being. In the end, to be fully present is to live free. Free from regret, free from fear, free from the endless pull of time. You realize that peace was never hiding in a future destination. It was waiting in the stillness of this very breath. This moment right now is your teacher, your refuge, your truth. And when you live from that awareness, life stops feeling like a race and becomes what it was always meant to be, a sacred, unrepeatable experience. The more you live in the now, the more you realize that eternity isn't a long time. It is the absence of time. It is this moment, timeless, silent, complete. When you awaken to that, your soul becomes untouchable. No fear of the future, no pain of the past, no chaos of the world can reach you because you have returned to the only place where peace has ever lived, the eternal now. 9. Silence is the strongest response. Silence, the word itself, feels like peace when you say it slowly. Yet in our world, silence is often misunderstood. People think it is weakness, avoidance, or lack of confidence. But in truth, silence is one of the greatest forms of strength a human being can develop. It is the discipline of the wise, the armor of the calm, and the sacred language of the soul. The Buddha taught that words have power. They can heal or harm, uplift or destroy, but only when they come from silence do they carry true wisdom. To master silence is to master yourself, because the one who can stay quiet when provoked, patient when insulted, and composed in chaos has conquered the loudest enemy, their own ego. The world today worships noise. Everyone wants to be heard, to prove, to argue, to justify. Social media, debates, gossip, endless opinions, all are symptoms of a restless mind that fears stillness. Silence threatens the ego because in silence the truth becomes clear. And the ego doesn't want clarity, it wants distraction. But when you withdraw from noise and dwell in silence, you begin to see the patterns of your thoughts and emotions with sharp clarity. You begin to see that most of your reactions, your defenses, your words come not from truth, but from fear, the fear of being misunderstood, unappreciated, or ignored. Silence teaches you to let go of that fear. It says, you do not need to speak to prove your worth. Your peace is proof enough. When you are silent, you give space for understanding to rise. You stop reacting to every impulse and start listening to the deeper rhythm beneath events. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you strengthen your soul's foundation. The ego wants to win arguments, but the awakened heart wants peace. There is a profound dignity in saying nothing when others expect you to break. The loud person seeks attention, the silent one commands respect. Because silence carries weight, it cannot be argued with, interrupted, or misunderstood. It simply is powerful and unshakable. But silence is not just the absence of words, it is the presence of awareness. It's not about never speaking, it's about speaking from a place of clarity. Most people talk to fill space, to avoid discomfort, or to prove something. Yet the Buddha said, if your words are not more beautiful than silence, do not speak. To live by that principle is to elevate your consciousness above the noise of the world. You begin to speak only when your words carry healing, guidance, or truth. And when they don't, you rest in the eloquence of stillness. There is a silence that comes from peace, and a silence that creates peace. The first happens when the mind is calm. The second happens when you consciously choose to remain calm. When you practice silence, even for a few minutes a day, you start to notice things you never saw before, the subtleties of breath, the music in stillness, the movement of thought. In that awareness, your mind begins to slow down. The endless chatter inside the inner critic, the constant replaying of memories, the worry about the future starts to dissolve. What remains is presence, clarity, and lightness. Silence also has immense power in relationships. When someone argues with you or speaks harshly, the natural instinct is to defend yourself. You want to correct them, prove your point, or fight back. But silence is the mirror that reflects their energy back to them. It exposes their noise without feeding it. Try this. The next time someone insults you, pause. Feel the urge to respond, but don't. Watch the silence stretch between you. In that moment, you will feel something powerful. You have reclaimed control. You have refused to be dragged into the mud of reaction. Silence breaks the chain of negativity. It disarms anger because it offers no resistance. Over time, those who try to provoke you realize that they cannot reach you. Your silence becomes your shield. The Buddha often compared silence to a sharp sword, invisible, yet capable of cutting through illusion. When you are silent, you can see things as they truly are, not as your emotions distort them. Words often add confusion. Silence brings clarity. When you stop talking, you begin listening not just to others, but to your own heart, to the quiet wisdom that speaks only when the noise fades. Most people never hear that inner voice because they drown it in conversation, distraction, and endless stimulation. But when you fall into silence, your intuition awakens. You begin to receive insights that logic could never give. There are moments in life when silence says more than 1,000 words ever could. When someone hurts you deeply, silence speaks forgiveness without pride. When someone disrespects you, silence speaks self-respect without ego. When life tests you, silence speaks faith without fear. To be silent in these moments is not to suppress emotion, it is to transform it. Anger becomes understanding. Sadness becomes reflection. Frustration becomes patience. Silence is the alchemy that turns emotional noise into wisdom. Think about nature. The most powerful forces are silent. The earth rotates without a sound. The sun rises each morning without announcement. The stars burn for millions of years in silence. The tree grows without shouting, and the river flows without complaint. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness in its purest form. The more you align yourself with that natural silence, the more your life flows with harmony. You stop forcing, chasing, and proving. You simply act when it's time to act, and rest when it's time to rest. This is the way of peace. However, silence does not mean passivity. It does not mean ignoring injustice or avoiding truth. It means choosing the right moment to speak when your words come from understanding, not anger. The silence of wisdom is different from the silence of fear. Fearful silence avoids, wise silence observes. When you are centered, silence becomes your ally. It gives your words precision and your actions depth. You learn that speaking less but meaning more has infinitely greater impact. The practice of silence begins internally. It starts with quieting your thoughts. You can sit for 5 minutes a day, close your eyes, and simply listen to the silence around you. You will notice the mind resisting rushing to fill the void with thoughts, plans, and memories. But if you persist, something magical happens. The noise begins to fade, and a vast inner space opens. You start feeling at peace, not because the world is silent, but because you are. That inner silence is your sanctuary. It is the place where the soul renews itself. When you start living with inner silence, you no longer feel the need to prove or argue. You realize that people can only see from the level of their own awareness. You cannot force them to understand you. Silence becomes your acceptance of their journey. You stop explaining yourself to those who are determined to misunderstand. You stop wasting energy trying to convince others of your worth. Your energy, once scattered through arguments and noise, returns to you. You become lighter, calmer, more magnetic. Silence also teaches humility. It reminds you that not every situation needs your opinion. In silence, you learn that wisdom is not always in speaking, but in knowing when to remain quiet. The Buddha himself would sometimes remain silent when asked certain questions, not because he didn't know the answer, but because he knew the answer wouldn't be understood by a mind not yet ready. That kind of silence is compassion. It protects truth from being wasted. In the age of constant communication, practicing silence is a radical act. It means turning off the noise not just outside, but inside. It means reclaiming your mental space from the chaos of opinions, notifications, and endless comparisons. Silence is not isolation, it is purification. It is how the soul detoxes from the world's noise. When you spend time in silence, you realign with what truly matters. You remember who you are without the roles, without the expectations, without the noise. Try incorporating moments of silence throughout your day. When you wake up, don't immediately reach for your phone. Sit in silence for a few breaths and feel gratitude for being alive. When you walk, walk without music or distraction. Listen to your steps, to the wind, to life. When you eat, chew slowly and taste every bite in silence. When you feel angry, pause before reacting. These small practices cultivate stillness. Over time, that stillness grows stronger than any emotion. You begin to carry silence with you not as absence of sound, but as presence of peace. Silence will change how you see conflict. When others argue, you don't need to win. You understand that truth doesn't need defending, it simply is. You let others speak, even if they are wrong, and you stay grounded in your calm. This doesn't mean you let people walk over you, it means you rise above them. Silence becomes your dignity. It says, "Your chaos cannot reach me." And in time, people recognize that your calmness is not weakness, but mastery. Silence also deepens your spiritual connection. In prayer or meditation, silence is the bridge between you and the divine. Words may express devotion, but silence experiences it. When you quiet the mind completely, even for a moment, you touch the infinite. You feel the pulse of existence itself. Many mystics and monks spend years cultivating silence because it opens the door to awakening. The divine doesn't shout, it whispers, and only a silent mind can hear that whisper. There is a kind of silence that lives even in the midst of sound, the silence of the soul. It is not about removing noise, but about remaining still within it. You could be standing in a busy marketplace and still feel quiet inside. That is true mastery, when the outer world no longer dictates your inner peace. When you reach that point, you understand why silence is the strongest response. Because it means nothing outside has the power to pull you into reaction. You remain sovereign over your emotions, your energy, and your peace. When you live in silence, life starts to speak to you differently. The same situations that once angered you now teach you. The same words that once hurt you now reveal lessons. Silence sharpens your perception. You begin to sense truth without words, lies without evidence, love without expression. You become intuitive, centered, and wise. People may not understand your silence, but they will feel it as calmness, as authority, as mystery. So, learn to honor silence. Let it become your teacher, your healer, your power. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every chaos deserves your voice. Sometimes, silence says more than any speech ever could. It says, "I choose peace over ego." It says, "I am not moved by noise." It says, "I trust the universe to speak through time." Silence is not retreat, it is return. It is returning to your truest self, the part of you that existed before the noise of the world began shaping you. It is remembering that the most powerful souls speak the least and observe the most. When you cultivate silence, your words become rare but radiant because they come from depth, not impulse. In the end, silence is not the absence of communication, it is the highest form of it. It communicates presence, wisdom, patience, and understanding. It is the language of the awakened, the refuge of the peaceful, and the fortress of the strong. When you master silence, you no longer need to defend your peace, it defends you. So, the next time life tempts you to react, pause and remember this truth. Your silence is not emptiness, it is power. Speak when words can heal, stay silent when words can wound. Because silence, when born from awareness, is not weakness, it is divine mastery. It is the sound of your soul standing tall, unshaken, and untouchable amidst the noise of the world. And in that silence, you will find not just peace, but freedom, the kind that no storm, no insult, and no chaos can ever take away. Turn suffering into compassion. Pain is the doorway every soul must walk through on the journey to wisdom. There is no awakening without it. Every scar you carry, every heartbreak you've endured, every tear you've shed, they were not punishments from life, but invitations to grow, to soften, to awaken your heart. The Buddha said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." What he meant was that pain will always visit loss, failure, betrayal, illness. But suffering comes when you resist it, when you ask, "Why me?" instead of, "What can I learn from this?" The difference between a broken person and an awakened one lies not in what they experienced, but in how they transformed it. Pain either closes your heart or opens it wider. The choice is yours. To turn suffering into compassion is to stop running from pain and start listening to it. It means to sit in the fire of discomfort and discover that it's not here to destroy you, but to burn away illusions. The illusion of control, of permanence, of perfection. Pain dissolves them all. It humbles you. It brings you face to face with your own vulnerability, reminding you that beneath pride and ego, you are just a human being, learning how to live. When you finally stop resisting, pain becomes a teacher, unlike any other one that teaches through experience, not theory. And when you truly learn, something miraculous happens. Instead of bitterness, you grow understanding. Instead of judgment, empathy. Instead of hate, compassion. Most people, when hurt, build walls. They say, "I'll never trust again. I'll never love again. I'll never forgive." But walls don't protect, they imprison. You end up trapped inside your pain, replaying it endlessly. Compassion breaks those walls. It doesn't mean forgetting what happened, it means freeing yourself from being defined by it. When you turn pain into compassion, you stop asking, "Why did they hurt me?" and start understanding, they too are lost, they too are suffering. You see that every act of cruelty in this world comes from someone disconnected from their own peace. And suddenly, you stop taking things personally. You begin to see suffering everywhere, not as something unique to you, but as the shared condition of humanity. When you realize that everyone carries unseen wounds, your heart begins to soften. You start responding to others' pain not with anger, but with tenderness. You understand that the person who shouts is crying inside. The one who betrays is afraid. The one who ignores is disconnected. Seeing this doesn't excuse their actions, but it frees you from hatred. You begin to feel what the Buddha called karuna, the deep compassion that arises when one sees suffering clearly and responds with love. Turning suffering into compassion doesn't happen overnight. It is a process, a slow alchemy of the heart. First comes the pain, raw and unfiltered. You feel it in your chest, your bones, your mind. You resist it, you question it, you fight with it. But eventually, the exhaustion of resistance gives way to surrender. You stop running and finally face it. You sit with your pain, breathing through it. You stop judging it and start observing it, how it moves, what it triggers, what it teaches. That awareness begins to dissolve the hardness around your heart. The wound becomes a window, a place where light starts to enter. In Buddhism, there is a concept called tonglen, the practice of transforming suffering into compassion. It means breathing in the pain, your own or others, and breathing out love, relief, and understanding. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. When you breathe in pain consciously, you are no longer resisting it. You are saying, I am strong enough to hold this. And when you breathe out compassion, you are saying, may all beings, including myself, find peace. This act turns your suffering from poison into medicine, not just for you, but for the world. Consider this truth. Without pain, empathy could not exist. If you had never felt heartbreak, how could you comfort someone who is heartbroken? If you had never felt fear, how could you reassure the fearful? Pain carves depth into your soul. It expands your capacity to understand, to forgive, to love. The deepest compassion often grows from the deepest wounds. The cracks in your heart are not flaws. They are openings through which light enters and flows outward to others. When you turn your pain into compassion, even the worst moments of your life gain meaning. The suffering you once cursed becomes sacred because it shaped your soul. You begin to look back and realize that every person who hurt you, every situation that broke you, was guiding you toward awakening. They showed you the fragility of life, the emptiness of ego, the strength of forgiveness. They forced you to let go of illusions and discover your real power, the power of a heart that refuses to close. The Buddha taught that hatred never ends through hatred, but only through love. The world changes not when pain disappears, but when it transforms. You cannot control whether people will harm or misunderstand you, but you can control whether you become bitter or better. When you respond to pain with compassion, you break the cycle of suffering. You turn wounds into wisdom. You turn scars into service. You become a healing presence in a world filled with wounded souls. To live this way requires courage. Compassion is not weakness. It is strength refined by fire. It takes immense bravery to look at the world's cruelty and still choose to love. To forgive when you have every reason to hate. To help when you are hurting. To smile when your heart is heavy. This is the highest form of victory, not over others, but over yourself. There will be times when you will be misunderstood for your compassion. People may call you naive, weak, or foolish. But remember, compassion is not about letting people walk over you. It is about walking above their energy. It is not about tolerating injustice. It is about acting from love rather than resentment. You can say no with compassion, set boundaries with kindness, and walk away without hate. True compassion is not passive. It is powerful, but without violence. When you see suffering in others, your own wounds begin to heal. The Buddha said, if you light a lamp for someone, it will also brighten your path. Every time you comfort, listen, or forgive, you are also healing yourself. Compassion is a mirror. It reflects the peace you offer outward, back into your own heart. Helping others find light doesn't diminish your flame, it makes it burn brighter. To turn suffering into compassion is also to expand your perspective. Pain shrinks your world when you focus only on yourself. Compassion expands it by reminding you that everyone is walking their own difficult path. The person who cut you off in traffic, the colleague who criticized you, the stranger who seemed rude, they might be fighting invisible battles you cannot see. When you respond with patience instead of anger, you not only protect your peace, you also send ripples of calmness into the world. Compassion spreads quietly, like fragrance from a flower. It doesn't need attention. It transforms everything around it by its presence. One day, you will look back at your hardest moments and realize they were sacred turning points. That heartbreak that broke you, it taught you empathy. That failure that humiliated you, it taught you humility. That loneliness that crushed you, it taught you how to be whole on your own. When you see this clearly, gratitude begins to rise where resentment once lived. You thank your pain for being your teacher. You thank those who hurt you for showing you where you still needed healing. This gratitude transforms suffering into wisdom, and wisdom into peace. Compassion is also the bridge between you and others. It dissolves the illusion of separation. When you suffer, you feel isolated, as if no one can understand. But when you look closely, you see that suffering is universal. Every being that breathes experiences loss, fear, or longing. When you realize this, you stop seeing others as them and start seeing them as us. You begin to feel connected to every living being. The joy of others becomes your joy. The pain of others becomes your responsibility. You start living not for yourself, but for the well-being of all. That is enlightenment in action. Pain refines you like fire refines gold. If you let it, it purifies your heart from anger, pride, and selfishness. It teaches you patience, endurance, and surrender. But if you resist it, it burns you. The fire is the same. Your relationship with it determines the outcome. The Buddha once said that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal with the intent to throw it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Compassion is the act of dropping the coal. It doesn't mean forgetting the fire. It means refusing to feed it. To cultivate compassion, start small. When someone irritates you, pause before reacting. When you feel misunderstood, breathe before defending. When you encounter pain, ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" And, "How can this make me kinder?" Over time, these small shifts build a habit of heart. Compassion becomes your default response. Your energy changes. You start walking through the world with softness, even in hard times. People feel peace in your presence without knowing why. That is the silent influence of compassion. And remember, compassion begins with yourself. Many people are kind to others but cruel to themselves. They carry guilt, shame, or regret like heavy stones in their hearts. But how can you truly love others if you have not forgiven yourself? Turning suffering into compassion means turning inward too, offering yourself the same understanding you offer others. You tell yourself, "I was doing my best with the awareness I had then." You stop judging your past self and start embracing your growth. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It is self-awareness bathed in kindness. It says, "I am human, I make mistakes, and I can still be gentle with myself." Every act of compassion toward yourself or others becomes a thread in the great web of healing that connects us all. You may not see its effects immediately, but every kind thought, every patient silence, every understanding gesture matters. It ripples outward into the unseen world, creating peace in places you will never visit. That is the quiet revolution of compassion. It heals silently but powerfully. When you make compassion your response to suffering, you transform not just your life, but the collective human story. The wars, conflicts, and hatred that plague our world all begin with pain, pain that was never transformed. Hurt people, but healed people heal people. The world doesn't need more arguments or division. It needs more hearts that have turned pain into understanding. When one person chooses compassion over anger, the vibration of the entire world shifts slightly toward peace. So when suffering comes again, and it will, don't run from it. Sit with it. Feel it fully. Let it cleanse you. Let it open you. Ask it, "What truth are you showing me?" Cry if you must, but cry consciously. Know that each tear is washing away a layer of illusion. When you rise from that pain, do not rise bitter, rise better. Use your suffering to serve others. Let your wounds remind you how to treat others gently. Let your heartbreak teach you how to love selflessly. In the stillness of understanding, you will realize something profound: pain was never your enemy. It was your initiation into the truth of compassion. It was how the universe carved space in your heart for more light to enter. Every sorrow expanded your capacity to love. Every trial purified your awareness. Every moment of darkness was preparing you to be a bearer of light. When you reach this realization, suffering loses its sting. It no longer breaks you. It refines you. You begin to thank the storms for teaching you how to stand still. You thank the fire for teaching you how to glow. You thank life for every wound that became wisdom. And you finally understand why the Buddha smiled, even after seeing all the world's suffering, because he saw beyond the pain. He saw the seed of awakening hidden within it. To turn suffering into compassion is to awaken to your highest purpose, to be a source of peace in a world of pain. You may not be able to heal every wound or fix every problem, but by embodying compassion, you become part of the solution. Your presence becomes medicine. Your silence becomes guidance. Your love becomes refuge. And when you live like that, when your heart remains open even after being broken, when your soul continues to give even after losing, when your eyes still see beauty, even through tears, then you have discovered the deepest truth of all. Suffering was never here to destroy you. It was here to make you divine. It was the sculptor shaping your soul into something luminous. And through that transformation, you become what the world needs most, a being of compassion, born from pain, yet untouchable in peace. Simplify to sanctify. In a world obsessed with more possessions, more success, more noise, more attention, the soul quietly longs for less. Simplicity is not poverty, it is clarity. It is the art of removing everything that doesn't matter so that what truly matters can breathe again. The Buddha taught that desire is the root of all suffering, not because wanting is evil, but because endless wanting blinds you to the peace that already exists within you. The mind that always says, "I need one more thing to be happy," can never rest. But when you simplify your life, your possessions, your thoughts, your routines, your relationships, you begin to hear something deeper, the quiet voice of peace that was buried beneath the clutter of wanting. To simplify is to sanctify, because simplicity is sacred. It is not about depriving yourself of joy. It is about removing distractions that block the natural joy of being. When your life becomes simple, your senses awaken. You start to see beauty in things that used to go unnoticed. The sound of rain, the taste of warm tea, the breath moving in your chest. These small things, ignored by a busy mind, become gateways to contentment. The Buddha lived with almost nothing, yet possessed everything that truly mattered: a calm heart, a clear mind, and a boundless compassion. Simplicity is not measured by how much you own, but by how lightly you carry what you have. Our modern world has taught us to fill every corner of life, our homes, our schedules, our minds. We collect objects, experiences, and opinions as if they could fill the silence we fear. But the more we accumulate, the emptier we feel. Look around, wardrobes overflowing, calendars packed, minds restless. We chase comfort and drown in chaos. We mistake abundance for fulfillment. But fulfillment is not found in quantity, it is found in quality. A simple meal eaten with mindfulness nourishes more deeply than a feast consumed in haste. A single true friend gives more comfort than 100 acquaintances. One moment of stillness gives more clarity than hours of distraction. Simplicity begins with space, outer space and inner space. Clean one shelf, one drawer, one corner, and you'll feel it a small sense of lightness. The external decluttering mirrors an inner release. Each object you release carries a piece of stagnant energy. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you make space for serenity. The same principle applies to the mind. You don't need to hoard thoughts, fears, or regrets. Let them go. Thoughts are like clouds. When you stop holding on, the sky of your mind clears and light returns. Many people think simplicity means living in isolation or giving up ambition. But true simplicity doesn't demand you retreat from life. It invites you to engage with life more consciously. It's not about doing less. It's about doing what matters most. You can still pursue goals, create, work, and love, but you do so with awareness, not attachment. You stop measuring your worth by how busy or successful you are and start valuing how peaceful and present you feel. Simplicity replaces achievement anxiety with inner alignment. The Buddha said, "The less you have, the less you fear losing." And this doesn't only apply to material things. When you simplify your desires, you free yourself from the chains of expectation. You stop comparing, competing, and constantly proving. You discover that peace comes not from adding more, but from needing less. The greatest luxury is not wealth, it is contentment. The richest person is not the one with the most, but the one who can say, "I have enough." Simplicity also brings you closer to truth. Complexity is the language of the ego, always analyzing, justifying, and overthinking. Simplicity is the language of the soul, clear, direct, and pure. When your life becomes simple, your choices become easy. You no longer waste energy on trivial things. You know what truly matters: kindness, health, honesty, time, love, silence. You start asking, does this bring peace or noise? And that one question begins to guide every decision. The things that bring peace stay. The things that bring noise fall away. There's also spiritual power in simplicity. When you remove distractions, the divine becomes easier to feel. You begin to see God, or the sacred, in everything: in a leaf, a breath, a smile. The more complex your life, the more distant the sacred feels, hidden behind layers of mental clutter. But the simpler your life, the thinner the veil. The mystics and monks of every tradition understood this. That's why they lived simply, not to escape the world, but to experience it fully, without distortion. Simplicity is the path through which the heart becomes a temple, and every act becomes prayer. Simplicity also extends to your relationships. The more you simplify how you relate to others, the more peaceful your heart becomes. Let go of unnecessary drama, gossip, and expectations. Love people as they are, not as you wish they would be. Speak less but mean more. Listen without the need to reply. Stop trying to manage how others see you. It's not your responsibility. The simple truth is, if you are genuine, you attract genuineness. If you are at peace, you attract peace. The web of social pretense dissolves when you start valuing authenticity over appearance. In your daily life, simplification can be a spiritual discipline. Wake up and do one thing at a time. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you rest, just rest. The mind loves multitasking because it keeps it distracted from silence, but multitasking divides your attention and steals your depth. Doing one thing with full awareness transforms the ordinary into the sacred. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Sweeping the floor becomes prayer. Simplicity turns every act into mindfulness. Financially and materially, simplicity protects your freedom. Every possession demands energy to buy, to maintain, to protect. When you own less, you owe less to society, to status, to fear. The fewer things you cling to, the fewer chains can bind you. True wealth lies in freedom from craving. This doesn't mean you reject comfort or beauty. It means you choose wisely. You can appreciate luxury without being enslaved by it. The simple heart says, "This is beautiful, but I don't need it to be whole." Emotionally, simplicity means cutting through mental clutter, the unnecessary stories you tell yourself. So much of human suffering comes not from life itself, but from overcomplicating it. A simple mind doesn't overthink why someone didn't call, why something didn't happen, or what others might think. It accepts what is, learns what it must, and lets the rest go. A simple heart forgives quickly because it doesn't hold grudges. A simple life flows smoothly because it doesn't resist change. When you simplify, your energy shifts. You stop rushing. You start breathing. You notice that you no longer feel drained at the end of the day because you are no longer scattering your energy across dozens of meaningless pursuits. You begin to live intentionally, not reacting to life, but creating it consciously. You stop saying yes to everything and start saying yes only to what aligns with peace. Simplicity also deepens gratitude. When you live simply, every small blessing feels huge. A quiet morning becomes a gift, a shared meal becomes abundance, a walk under the stars becomes luxury. Gratitude thrives in simplicity because it has space to grow. The more you possess, the harder it becomes to appreciate. The simpler your life, the easier it is to be content. And simplicity heals the nervous system. In a world of constant stimulation, screens flashing, notifications buzzing, opinions shouting, the mind is always in alert mode. Simplifying your digital life, limiting social media, turning off notifications, sitting in silence is not laziness, it's medicine. Silence is the space where your mind resets, where creativity returns, where peace regenerates. The simple life is not slow, it's steady. It has rhythm, not rush. The Buddha's own life was the embodiment of simplicity. He renounced his royal luxuries not because wealth was evil, but because he saw how attachment enslaved the mind. He discovered that freedom doesn't come from owning the world, but from not being owned by it. When you live simply, you are free to give, free to love, free to rest. You stop chasing a life and start living one. Practically, simplicity can begin in small ways. Wake up earlier and greet the morning light in silence. Organize your living space, let go of what you haven't used in years. Limit the number of choices in your day, wear simple clothes, eat simple meals. Simplify your routines. This reduces decision fatigue and makes space for creativity and calm. Try spending one day a week disconnected from devices. Notice how your mind slows down and how much peace returns. You can even simplify spiritually. Many people get lost in complex rituals, endless philosophies, or competing beliefs. But the essence of spirituality is simple. Be present, be kind, and be aware. Every teaching, every scripture, every practice points to this truth. The more you simplify your spiritual life, the closer you come to understanding. The Buddha never asked for elaborate worship. He asked for mindfulness, compassion, and clarity. Simplicity reveals that enlightenment is not far away. It's right here, hidden beneath the clutter of overthinking. Simplicity also means living in harmony with nature. The natural world is profoundly simple yet infinitely wise. A tree doesn't rush its growth, it grows in silence. The moon doesn't compete to shine, it reflects the light effortlessly. When you align yourself with the simple rhythm of nature, waking with the sun, resting with the night, eating when hungry, breathing with awareness, you restore balance to your entire being. Nature is the greatest teacher of simplicity because it shows that perfection doesn't require complexity, only alignment. The spiritual reward of simplicity is purity. When your life is cluttered, your energy is divided. When you simplify, your energy becomes whole. Your thoughts, words, and actions align. You begin to radiate calmness. Others feel it around you, that quiet presence, that ease. You become like still water, clear, reflective, tranquil. But simplicity is not a one-time achievement. It is a continuous practice. The world will constantly tempt you to complicate your life again, to buy more, to prove more, to do more. You must keep returning to simplicity the way a monk returns to his breath. Every few months, pause and ask, what have I picked up that no longer serves me. Then release it an object, a habit, a belief. Life becomes lighter every time you let go. Eventually, simplicity becomes your nature. You no longer need to think about it. It becomes who you are. You prefer quiet to noise, truth to appearance, peace to drama, depth to distraction. You stop chasing extraordinary moments and start cherishing ordinary ones. You realize that the miracle is not somewhere else, it is right here, in the simplicity of being alive. When your life becomes simple, your soul becomes luminous. You no longer hide behind possessions, roles, or complexity. You become transparent to yourself and the world. People sense your authenticity and peace. You live as an example that freedom is not found in adding, but in subtracting. And one day, you will look around your uncluttered space, breathe in the calm air, and smile because you will finally understand that simplicity was not just about cleaning your home or quieting your mind. It was about remembering who you truly are beneath everything you thought you needed to be. In simplicity, you discover sanctity. Every act becomes sacred when done with awareness. Every moment becomes holy when it is uncluttered by haste. Every breath becomes prayer when it is taken in gratitude. This is the essence of a sanctified life, not distant from the world, but deeply rooted in it, pure, grounded, and free. When you simplify to sanctify, life stops feeling like a struggle and becomes a graceful flow. You realize you never needed much to be at peace, just a quiet heart, an uncluttered mind, and a grateful soul. The path to enlightenment is not upward or outward. It is inward, a journey of returning to simplicity, where your true self has been waiting all along. Simplicity is not the opposite of abundance. It is the highest form of it, because when you need nothing, everything becomes a gift. The morning sun, the laughter of a friend, the stillness of night all become treasures. And in that awareness, you finally understand the greatest truth of all. Peace was never hidden. It was only buried under too much. So, simplify your space, your schedule, your speech, your soul. Every time you let go of something unnecessary, you come closer to what is eternal. You sanctify your life, not by adding more holiness, but by removing what blocks it. For in the end, simplicity is not about living with less. It's about living with what truly matters: peace, presence, and purpose. And once you taste that, you'll know you never needed the noise to feel alive. You only needed the silence that simplicity brings. See yourself as the observer, not the actor. The greatest illusion of life is that you are the actor on the stage, constantly performing, striving, reacting, proving, fearing, and defending. You get caught in the drama of your own story, believing every thought, every emotion, every role you play is who you truly are. But beneath all that movement, there is something far deeper: the witness, the observer, the silent awareness that watches everything come and go. The Buddha taught that enlightenment begins the moment you stop identifying with the actor and start realizing you are the observer. You are not the waves that rise and fall. You are the ocean that watches them. You are not the passing clouds. You are the vast sky that holds them without judgment. To see yourself as the observer means to awaken from the trance of attachment, to step back and see life for what it truly is: a play of forms, a dance of impermanence, a movie projected on the screen of consciousness. Every emotion, thought, and experience is a scene that appears, unfolds, and fades. The actor suffers because he believes the story is real. The observer is free because he knows it's just a scene. The actor says, "This is happening to me." The observer says, "This is happening through me." One is entangled, the other is liberated. Every day, we play countless roles: the parent, the friend, the employee, the lover, the teacher, the child. We wear these masks so often that we forget the face beneath them. The problem is not in playing roles. The problem is in forgetting they are temporary. The actor clings to every role, fearing what will happen when the scene ends. The observer flows through them all, knowing that every beginning is just another step in the eternal unfolding of existence. Imagine watching a movie in a theater. You cry, laugh, get scared, feel joy, but a part of you knows it's not real. That's why you enjoy it. You are aware that you are safe in the seat, watching it happen on the screen. Now imagine if you forgot that truth, if you stood up and started shouting at the actors, believing their pain was your own. That's what the unawakened mind does. It takes the movie of life too seriously. It forgets that behind every moment of joy or pain, there is an awareness that remains untouched. The practice of seeing yourself as the observer begins with mindfulness. Every time you feel strong, emotion, anger, jealousy, sadness, pride, pause. Don't suppress it, just notice it. Watch it rise. Feel how it moves through your body. Listen to what your mind says about it. Then remind yourself, I am the one who is aware of this emotion. I am not the emotion itself. That single recognition begins to dissolve the grip of identification. You start to realize that emotions, like clouds, come and go, but the sky of awareness remains. The observer doesn't mean being detached in a cold or lifeless way. It means being fully alive, but not imprisoned by what happens. When something beautiful arises, you enjoy it deeply, but don't cling to it. When something painful arises, you experience it fully, but don't drown in it. You begin to live in balance, feeling everything, losing nothing. The observer is like a mirror. It reflects whatever appears before it without holding on to the reflection. In Buddhism, this awareness is called sati, the mindful witnessing of all experience. The Buddha described it as being mindful and clearly aware, meaning to live with the constant remembrance that you are not what you experience. You are the awareness experiencing it. When this realization deepens, your relationship with life transforms. Problems don't disappear, but their power over you fades. You can face challenges with calmness, pain with patience, and joy with gratitude. Seeing yourself as the observer also means understanding that your thoughts are not you. Most people believe every thought their mind produces. They argue with them, defend them, obey them. But when you start observing, you notice something incredible. Thoughts come and go on their own. You don't invite them, and you can't stop them. They rise like bubbles in water and burst into silence. The more you watch, the more you see that your mind is not your enemy. It's simply a storyteller. Some stories are true, many are not. The observer doesn't fight the stories. It just watches them unfold without believing every word. This awareness brings profound freedom. Suppose someone insults you. The actor reacts, anger rises, pride hurts, the ego flares up. The observer notices all this, the heat in the body, the rush of adrenaline, the thoughts of defense, and simply breathes. It sees the emotion as energy, not identity. The anger passes, the moment dissolves, and peace remains. The insult never touched your true self. It only disturbed the role you were playing. The observer knows this truth. Nothing external can harm who you really are. Seeing yourself as the observer also deepens compassion. When you understand your own mind's patterns, you begin to see that everyone else is also caught in theirs. The person who lies, hurts, or reacts harshly is lost in their own mental movie. They're not evil, they're asleep. The observer sees this and responds with understanding instead of judgment. Compassion becomes natural when you stop taking the world personally. The actor constantly seeks validation. Do they like me? Am I enough? Did I win? The observer needs none of it because it knows it was never in competition. The actor fears death because it believes the play will end. The observer smiles because it knows that even when the curtain falls, the witness remains. This is what the Buddha meant when he said that the awakened one has gone beyond birth and death. The observer never began, and it will never end. It simply is. Meditation is the direct path to this realization. When you sit quietly and watch your breath, thoughts will arise. You may drift into memories, fantasies, fears, but the moment you notice, "Oh, I was thinking," you've stepped out of the movie and back into awareness. That moment of noticing is awakening. The more you practice, the stronger that awareness becomes. Eventually, it begins to extend into everyday life while walking, talking, eating, even working. You begin to live from the observer rather than the actor. This doesn't mean life becomes dull or distant. In fact, it becomes more vibrant. When you are the observer, you experience everything more fully because you're not resisting or labeling it. You can laugh without fear, cry without shame, love without attachment. You become like a dancer who has stopped worrying about how they look and starts moving with pure presence. Every gesture becomes an expression of awareness. Seeing yourself as the observer also brings immense peace during loss and change. When you identify as the actor, every ending feels like death. The end of a relationship, a failure, a loss, it feels like the end of you. But when you live as the observer, you see that what ends is only a role, not the essence. Just as an actor changes costumes, life changes its forms. The awareness behind them remains the same. This understanding allows you to let go with grace. You don't cling to the past or fear the future because you know that what you truly are cannot be lost. One of the most powerful exercises is to watch yourself throughout the day as if you were watching a film. Observe your reactions. Notice when you get triggered, when you rush, when you worry. Don't judge yourself. Simply watch. The more you observe, the less power the ego has. You start to see patterns, how certain words make you defensive, how certain fears repeat. Observation brings light to what was unconscious, and light dissolves illusion. The actor says, "I am angry." The observer says, "Anger is arising." The difference seems small, but it is vast. The first creates identity. The second creates freedom. When you realize you are not the emotion loses control over you. This awareness transforms not just your inner life, but your outer one. Your relationships improve because you no longer react blindly. Your work improves because you're no longer ruled by anxiety. Your days become lighter because you're no longer trapped in the mind's constant commentary. To live as the observer is to experience what the Buddha called nirvana, not as a mystical escape, but as freedom from identification. It's the realization that all forms, pleasant or unpleasant, are temporary and cannot define you. You are the consciousness behind them. You are the stillness in the noise, the silence beneath the sound, the awareness that perceives everything but is never touched by anything. This truth is simple, but the mind resists it. The ego thrives on being someone. It needs drama, comparison, importance. The observer doesn't feed that need, it rests in being. That's why it feels uncomfortable at first. The ego fears disappearing. But what actually disappears is not you, it's the false image you thought was you. What remains is vast, peaceful, and luminous. The observer is not a void, it is fullness beyond form. As this awareness deepens, even pain becomes sacred. When suffering arises, you no longer say, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, you observe it as energy passing through consciousness. You watch it like a storm moving across the sky. You no longer fight the storm, you let it pass. The observer knows that everything that arises will fall. Every pain carries a lesson. Every loss carries liberation. The actor fears impermanence. The observer bows to it as the ultimate teacher. The greatest paradox is that when you stop clinging to life as the actor, you begin to live more fully. You are no longer performing, you are experiencing. The sun feels warmer, the air feels fresher, your relationships become more genuine. You no longer pretend to be strong, you simply are. You no longer chase happiness, you simply feel it in being alive. The actor seeks purpose. The observer is purpose itself. Seeing yourself as the observer also ends comparison. When you are aware, you realize that every being is playing their own unique role in the grand play of life. You stop judging others for how they perform. You recognize the same awareness behind every pair of eyes, the same silent witness observing different experiences. This recognition is the root of compassion. You see that we are all waves of one ocean, sparks of one flame, drops of one rain. The actor competes, the observer connects. Eventually, awareness becomes effortless. You no longer need to remind yourself to watch, you simply are the watcher. Life moves through you like a river flowing through the valley. You still feel joy and sorrow, but they no longer bind you. You have learned to let everything come and go, knowing that you remain. This is liberation, not from life, but from illusion. So, how do you begin this journey? Start by being curious. Ask yourself throughout the day, who is aware of this moment? When you're angry, ask, who is feeling this anger? When you're happy, ask, who is enjoying this? You'll notice that behind every experience, there is the same awareness watching. That awareness has no shape, no name, no past, no future. It simply is. That is your true self. In the end, realizing yourself as the observer doesn't make you detached from life. It makes you deeply compassionate and fearless within it. You still play your roles you love, work, help, create, but you do it from a space of freedom, not bondage. You act fully but without attachment. You move through life's drama like an enlightened actor, sincere in every performance, but never forgetting it's a play. And when the play ends, when death comes, as it must, the actor will bow, the curtain will fall, but the observer will remain, silent, infinite, and free. Because the truth is, you were never just the actor. You were always the screen on which the movie of life was playing. You were never the passing story, you were the timeless awareness watching it unfold. So, live, love, laugh, cry, work, dream, but never forget to watch. Be in the world, but not lost in it. Let life's scenes come and go like waves on the shore, while you rest as the still ocean beneath. This is the highest freedom, to experience everything without being consumed by anything. When you realize this, nothing can disturb your soul again, because you have awakened from the dream. You have remembered who you truly are, the eternal observer, the silent witness, the pure consciousness that has always been watching, calm, infinite, and untouched by all that passes. The art of letting life flow through you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the uncontrollable: time, outcomes, people, the future, even their own emotions. They grasp at moments, build expectations, and fight against reality. But life was never meant to be gripped so tightly. The Buddha taught that peace does not come from mastering life. It comes from surrendering to its flow. Life is not a fixed object to hold. It is a current to move with. When you stop trying to force the river to go your way and start flowing with it, something miraculous happens. Your resistance fades, your stress dissolves, and your soul returns to harmony with existence. To let life flow through you is not to be passive. It is to live in deep trust. It means doing your best, but releasing your obsession with outcomes. It means embracing what comes and allowing what leaves. It means understanding that everything has its time, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death, and that each one plays its part in shaping your evolution. The one who flows with life doesn't fight the seasons. They know that even winter is sacred because it makes spring possible. But for most of us, The idea of surrender feels frightening. The mind craves certainty. It wants to know, to plan, to predict. Yet the truth is, no one has ever controlled life. We are all standing in a river that existed long before us and will continue long after. Our attempts to command the flow only exhaust us. We become anxious, disappointed, and angry when life doesn't match our expectations. The more we resist, the more painful it becomes. The art of letting life flow begins when we recognize that resistance is suffering. Imagine a leaf floating down a stream. It doesn't know where the water will take it, but it moves with grace around rocks, under branches, through sunlight and shadow. It doesn't fight the current or demand to know what lies ahead. It simply trusts. In the same way, when you allow life to flow through you, you stop clinging to the idea of control. You trust that every turn, even the unexpected ones, is carrying you somewhere meaningful. The flow may be fast, or slow, or winding, but it is always leading you closer to truth. Letting life flow does not mean giving up effort. It means removing resistance. You still act, work, and create, but you do so from a place of ease, not tension. You no longer push against reality, you align with it. When the time comes to move, you move. When the time comes to rest, you rest. You stop forcing doors to open and learn to walk through the ones that open naturally. This is not laziness, it is wisdom. The Buddha called it the middle path, the balance between striving and surrender, doing and being, effort and acceptance. One of the greatest obstacles to flow is attachment, our tendency to cling to how we think things should be. We want life to follow our script, to obey our timing, but life follows its own wisdom, not our preferences. When you can accept that, peace enters. You start to see that everything happens for you, not to you. Every delay carries direction. Every disappointment carries correction. When something you wanted slips away, it's because it wasn't aligned with your deeper journey. When something unexpected arrives, it's because life knew what you needed before you did. Letting life flow also means letting go of resistance to emotions. Most people fear their feelings. They suppress anger, avoid sadness, chase happiness. But emotions are like weather. They must move. When you allow them to pass through you instead of fighting them, they purify your soul. Sadness deepens your empathy. Anger teaches boundaries. Joy reminds you of presence. Fear strengthens your faith. Every emotion is part of the river's current. When you stop labeling them as good or bad, you experience them as energy transient, transforming, divine. The ego resists flow because it thrives on control. It believes, if I can manage everything, I will be safe. But the truth is, control is an illusion. Even the most carefully constructed plans can crumble in a single moment. An illness, an accident, a sudden change. Flow invites humility. It reminds you that you are not the author of life's script, but a character moving through its unfolding story. The awakened soul doesn't fear this truth. It finds freedom in it. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you finally have energy to live. Think of how the body itself flows. Your breath comes and goes on its own. Your heart beats without your permission. Blood moves through you like rivers feeding life. You are not consciously managing any of this, yet it works perfectly. The same intelligence that guides your breath guides the stars, the tides, and the turning of the earth. That is the flow you belong to. When you learn to trust it, you stop being the anxious doer and become the peaceful witness of life's perfection. Flow is also about timing. When you are in alignment with life, things unfold naturally. You meet the right people, the right opportunities, the right lessons, not by force, but by resonance. The universe operates in rhythm, not rush. The impatient mind wants things now. The wise heart trusts divine timing. Just as a seed doesn't bloom the moment it's planted, your dreams and healing unfold in their own season. The river doesn't hurry, yet it reaches the ocean. You don't need to chase, you need to trust. Letting life flow through you also means releasing the past. Many people cannot flow because they are anchored in what was. They replay old pain, hold grudges, and dwell on regrets. But the river of life never moves backward. When you cling to the past, you block the current. Forgiveness is the act of releasing that blockage. It doesn't change what happened. It frees your energy from being stuck there. When you forgive, you return to flow. You allow new experiences, new people, new light to enter. You start living again instead of remembering how to live. Similarly, worrying about the future pulls you out of the flow. The mind loves to project, what if this happens? What if that fails? But all worry is wasted energy because the future doesn't exist yet. The only place where flow happens is now. The present moment is the river. When you are fully here, feeling, breathing, noticing you are in sync with life itself. Flow is not about drifting aimlessly. It's about being so present that your next step arises naturally from awareness. To practice letting life flow, begin by trusting small moments. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of panicking, pause and say, perhaps this too has purpose. When plans change, when people leave, when things delay, breathe and allow. Look for the hidden wisdom. Maybe that traffic jam kept you from an accident. Maybe that rejection redirected you to your true path. Flow is not about luck. It's about seeing divine intelligence at work in everything. Letting life flow through you also means letting go of who you think you are. Identity is one of the biggest dams in the river of being. You say, I am this kind of person, and suddenly your possibilities shrink. But life is constantly inviting you to evolve. The river doesn't stay still, neither should you. When you cling to old labels, you resist growth. Flow means allowing yourself to change, to outgrow what no longer fits, to release what no longer feels right, to expand beyond who you once were. This flexibility is the foundation of spiritual freedom. Sometimes, life will test your ability to flow. It will take away what you loved, shake what you relied on, or leave you standing in uncertainty. In those moments, your mind will scream for control, but those are the moments that shape your awakening, because it's only when everything collapses that you realize you never needed control to be safe. You only needed trust. When you stop fighting the current, it carries you to shores you never imagined. Flow also brings creativity. When you stop forcing inspiration and allow it to arise naturally, your art, your words, your actions begin to carry the energy of truth. You become a vessel for the universe to express itself through you. The greatest creations, music, poetry, inventions, wisdom, were born in moments of surrender. They didn't come from effort, they came from alignment. When you are still, life speaks through you. That is the purest form of flow, to let the divine breathe through your human form. When you truly live in flow, you stop comparing your journey with others. The river doesn't envy another stream, it simply moves. The flower doesn't compete with the next, it just blooms. Comparison is resistance disguised as insecurity. The moment you start flowing with your own rhythm, jealousy disappears. You realize that everyone's current is unique. Some fast, some slow, some winding, some straight, but all heading toward the same ocean. There's also humility in flow. You no longer boast when things go right or despair when they go wrong. You simply bow to the mystery of existence. You recognize that you are not the doer, but the instrument. The same river that carried you to success could carry you through loss, and both are sacred. This humility softens the ego's edges. You stop taking credit for everything, and instead you give gratitude. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for this lesson. Gratitude turns resistance into reverence. Letting life flow through you does not make you weak, it makes you wise. It allows you to meet life on its terms, not your own. You still act, but you no longer force. You still dream, but you no longer grasp. You still care, but you no longer cling. You understand that nothing truly belongs to you, not even your body, not even your thoughts. They are all borrowed from the great current of existence. When you accept that truth, you stop fearing loss, because you realize what flows away always makes space for what flows in. Flow also teaches you presence in endings. When something ends, a friendship, a chapter, a phase, the actor mourns, the observer bows. Flow allows you to bless the ending and release it gracefully. You trust that what leaves your life no longer belongs to your vibration. The river doesn't cling to the water it just passed. It keeps moving forward, knowing more awaits ahead. When you let go this way, your heart stays light. Nothing can break you because nothing owns you. Eventually, living in flow becomes your natural state. You no longer panic when life shifts direction. You don't chase or beg for what's gone. You don't resist when plans fail. You move with the current, knowing it is wiser than you. You stop being afraid of uncertainty because you've realized uncertainty is where life happens. The known is safe, but lifeless. The unknown is where you meet your own unfolding soul. When you live like this, every day becomes an adventure. You wake up curious instead of anxious. You look at problems as puzzles, delays as divine pauses, endings as transformations. You begin to see that everything, even chaos, is guided. Life stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a dance, unpredictable but beautiful. You move with it, not against it. And perhaps the most beautiful part of flowing with life is the peace it brings. You stop fighting yourself. You stop arguing with reality. You stop demanding that life fit your idea of perfect. Instead, you start trusting that even imperfection has purpose. You see that every fall was a teaching, every pain a purification, every silence a message. Life has always been working for you, not against you. You simply needed to stop resisting long enough to see it. So let life flow through you. Don't dam the river with fear. Don't block it with expectations. Don't pollute it with judgment. Just let it move. Let love, loss, joy, and sorrow all pass through you like waves through the ocean. Feel everything, but don't hold anything. Do your best, but let go of the rest. Because in the end, peace is not found in control. It is found in trust. The river of life has never stopped flowing, not even for a moment, and neither have you. You are not separate from it, you are it. The same current that moves the stars and tides moves through your breath right now. When you realize that truth, when you stop fighting and start flowing, you become one with life itself. You no longer walk through existence. Existence moves through you. You live not as a struggler against the current, but as a dancer upon it. You understand what it truly means to be alive, to allow life to flow through you freely, without fear, without control, and without resistance until you finally merge back into the great ocean of being, peaceful, complete, and eternal. The still mind, where the world cannot touch you. There comes a point on the spiritual path when you realize that the greatest battles are not fought in the outer world, but within the landscape of your own mind. The storms that shake your peace, the fears that chain your heart, the anxieties that steal your sleep, they do not come from outside. They rise from within you, from the restless ocean of thought. The Buddha said, "We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think." If your mind is noisy, the world will always seem chaotic. If your mind is still, even chaos becomes beautiful. The still mind is not empty. It is full of awareness, full of clarity, full of strength that nothing external can disturb. To cultivate a still mind is to discover a sanctuary that moves with you wherever you go. It is not about escaping life. It is about finding peace in the middle of it. Life will always bring noise, people, problems, plans, responsibilities. But when your mind is still, the noise loses its power to shake you. The still mind sees things as they are, not as fear or desire paints them. It becomes the mirror of truth, reflecting without distortion, receiving without clinging. In the beginning, stillness may seem impossible. The mind is like a restless monkey, jumping from one thought to another. It clings to memories, worries about the future, obsesses over details. You try to quiet it, but the more you fight, the louder it becomes. That is because stillness cannot be forced. It must be allowed. The mind does not become silent through struggle. It becomes silent through understanding. The moment you stop identifying with your thoughts, the noise begins to fade on its own. Think of the sky on a stormy day. The wind howls, clouds swirl, lightning flashes, but beyond the storm, the sky remains vast and untouched. Your awareness is that sky. Thoughts are the clouds. They may cover your vision, but they cannot harm the sky itself. The still mind is not the absence of thoughts. It is the recognition that thoughts come and go, while you, the observer, remain. When you rest in that awareness, peace arises naturally. Stillness is not an escape from responsibility. It is the foundation of wise action. When your mind is agitated, you react blindly. You speak words you regret, make choices out of fear, and drown in confusion. But when your mind is still, clarity emerges. You begin to see the subtle causes behind events, the lessons hidden within challenges. Your actions become precise and compassionate because they arise from understanding, not impulse. The Buddha called this right mindfulness, the art of seeing clearly before acting. To develop a still mind, start by observing the movement of thought. Sit quietly for a few minutes each day and watch. Don't try to suppress anything, simply witness. Watch how the mind drifts to the past, jumps to the future, resists silence. Watch how it creates imaginary conversations, replays old pain, rehearses future fears. The more you watch, the more you realize that the mind is like a machine that never stops running until awareness touches it. Awareness is the key that slows the mechanism. The moment you see a thought clearly, it loses its control over you. With practice, the gaps between thoughts begin to widen. You start noticing moments of pure silence, fleeting at first, but powerful. Those moments are glimpses of your true nature. In them, you feel light, free, connected to everything yet bound to nothing. The more you rest in that space, the stronger it grows. Slowly, that stillness expands from meditation into daily life. You find yourself calm during arguments, focused during stress, and unshaken during uncertainty. The storm still happens, but your sky remains clear. A still mind is not emotionless. It feels everything: joy, sadness, love, pain, but it does not drown in any of it. Emotions pass through it like waves passing over the ocean. The surface may ripple, but the depth remains calm. This is why truly awakened people are deeply compassionate. Because when you are not ruled by emotion, you can feel others' pain without being consumed by it. You can love without attachment, serve without expectation, and forgive without hesitation. Silence is the natural state of the still mind. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence, a silence that listens deeply to life. In that silence, you begin to hear things that the noisy mind could never perceive: the whisper of intuition, the guidance of wisdom, the subtle language of existence. The still mind does not shout. It knows. It doesn't rush. It trusts. It doesn't fear. It flows. The path to stillness also requires simplifying your life. Every unnecessary distraction feeds mental noise. Every attachment pulls your mind outward. You cannot have a quiet inner world if your outer world is cluttered with chaos. This doesn't mean you must live as a monk, but it means you live consciously, choosing what you consume, what you do, and what you allow into your mental space. A single mindful decision to disconnect from constant stimulation is a step toward stillness. One of the great truths of Buddhism is that suffering comes from identification, from mistaking yourself for your thoughts. When the mind says, "I am angry," you believe it, and anger becomes your identity. When it says, "I am a failure," you believe it, and failure becomes your prison. But when you learn to see the mind as just a storyteller, you stop being its prisoner. You start listening to it like you would listen to a passing conversation, aware but not involved. In that detachment, freedom is born. Stillness also teaches patience. The restless mind wants instant answers, quick results, immediate relief. But life unfolds at its own rhythm. The still mind understands that growth takes time, like a seed transforming into a tree. It trusts that everything is moving exactly as it should. This trust dissolves anxiety because you no longer rush the river. You stop forcing and start allowing. In stillness, faith replaces fear. In this state, the world no longer controls you. Praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, they all come and go, but they no longer disturb your peace. You see them as waves of duality, necessary, temporary, and harmless when observed. The still mind lives in the middle, balanced between extremes. This is what the Buddha called equanimity, the mind that neither clings nor resists, neither fears nor desires. Such a mind cannot be manipulated, for it has nothing to prove and nothing to protect. Letting your mind become still does not mean suppressing thoughts or feelings. It means welcoming them and watching them pass. It means saying to every experience, "You are welcome here, but you cannot stay." This open acceptance transforms the mind from a battlefield into a temple. You no longer waste energy fighting yourself. You learn to rest in being. The still mind also brings healing. Many illnesses, mental, emotional, even physical, arise from constant stress, tension, and worry. When the mind quiets, the body follows. The breath deepens, the heartbeat steadies, the nervous system relaxes. The energy that was scattered through fear and overthinking returns to harmony. In stillness, your natural intelligence, the body's ability to heal, and the soul's ability to renew, awakens again. One of the paradoxes of life is that the more still your mind becomes, the more alive you feel. You notice details you once ignored, the play of light through leaves, the rhythm of rain, the subtle expressions of people. Everything becomes vivid because the noise that once dulled your perception is gone. The still mind doesn't dull life, it reveals it. And yet, reaching stillness is not a final destination, it is a continuous practice. Every day the world will tempt you with distractions. Every day the mind will try to pull you back into its noise. But you learn to return, again and again, to that inner silence. You learn to pause before reacting, to breathe before deciding, to observe before judging. Each return is a victory. Each moment of awareness strengthens your peace. In the still mind, even death loses its terror, because the one who is truly still has already died to illusion, to ego, to fear, to the false sense of separation. The still mind knows that life and death are just two breaths of the same existence. It no longer clings to what it cannot keep. It loves deeply, yet remains free. It experiences everything, yet holds nothing. There will be moments when your mind feels loud again, when thoughts return like waves in a storm. Do not despair. Even the most enlightened minds have storms. The difference is, they no longer believe the storm is who they are. They let it pass. This is mastery, not in avoiding storms, but in remaining still through them. To live with a still mind is to live in effortless peace. You walk slower, speak softer, breathe deeper. You start responding to life instead of reacting. You begin to see that you don't need to control everything to be at peace. You only need to stop fighting what is. When your mind is still, your heart becomes open and your actions become pure. The Buddha once sat silently under the Bodhi tree for 7 days after enlightenment, not because he had nothing to say, but because he had discovered that truth cannot be spoken. It can only be experienced in silence. The still mind doesn't explain life, it embodies it. In that stillness, you touch eternity, the awareness that existed before birth and will remain after death. When you live from that stillness, life continues to unfold as before the sun rises. People come and go, challenges appear, but you are no longer tossed by every wave. You live in the middle of the storm, untouched by it. You can smile in sorrow, be calm in uncertainty, and strong in surrender. That is the power of the still mind. The world moves, but you do not. So, start today. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Close your eyes and listen not to the world, but to the silence beneath it. Feel your breath. Watch your thoughts without following them. Listen to the spaces between sounds, the pauses between breaths. That space is you, the stillness that was there before you spoke, before you thought, before you became someone. Return to it again and again until you realize you never left. Because the truth is, you don't need to create stillness, it's already within you. Beneath the noise, beneath the worry, beneath the constant thinking, there it is, waiting, infinite and calm. You were born with it. It is your true nature. When you finally rest in that stillness, nothing external can disturb your soul. You realize that peace was never the absence of problems, it was the presence of awareness. You stop chasing calmness and start being it. The world continues to spin, people continue to talk, life continues to unfold, but you remain unmoved, watching, breathing, being. And in that moment of stillness, when everything stops, you will know. You have found the place where the world cannot touch you, the place that has no name, no form, no beginning, and no end. The place that is not in time, but beyond it. That is your true home, the still mind, vast, luminous, and eternally free. When you reach this point after walking through awareness, simplicity, silence, and compassion, you begin to understand what the Buddha truly meant by freedom. It is not an escape from life, but a way of living within it without losing your center. The storms still come, people still change, pain still visits, but your inner world no longer trembles. You have built a sanctuary within yourself, a place no noise can enter, no chaos can conquer. You begin to live not as a victim of circumstances, but as a witness to them. You realize that peace was never about controlling the waves. It was about remembering that you are the ocean. Every principle you've walked through, equanimity, acceptance, presence, compassion, silence, and detachment, has been preparing you for this truth. Nothing outside you has ever had power over you. The only power the world ever had was the power you unknowingly gave it. The moment you reclaim that awareness, life loses its grip. You see that joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, they are all just movements of energy, passing through the stillness of your being. This is what it means to stay unaffected by life, not to stop feeling, but to stop being owned by what you feel. You still love deeply, but without fear of loss. You still work hard, but without clinging to results. You still experience sadness, but it no longer becomes your identity. You move through the world like a calm flame glowing, but never burning out. The outer world may change 1,000 times, but your center remains still, steady, eternal. The unshakable soul is not born from comfort, it is born from understanding. You have learned that everything in life is both teacher and test. Pain taught you humility, silence taught you wisdom, simplicity taught you peace, and compassion taught you love. You have learned to respond instead of react, to let go instead of cling, to observe instead of absorb. You have learned that freedom is not found in escaping the world, but in embracing it with awareness. When you live like this, your life itself becomes meditation. Every breath becomes prayer, every act becomes service, every moment becomes sacred. You no longer chase enlightenment, you live it. You no longer seek peace, you are peace. You have returned to your original nature, the pure awareness that watches, loves, and allows all things without resistance. So, as you step forward, remember this truth. You are not here to control the storm. You are here to become the calm within it. You are not the actor struggling on the stage. You are the silent observer who watches the play with infinite patience. Let life unfold as it will. Let joy come. Let sorrow pass. Let everything rise and fall. Through it all, stay anchored in your center, quiet, awake, and free. Because when nothing outside you can disturb your peace, you have discovered the highest power a human being can possess, the power of an unshakable soul.